Welcome to Cloud Experts Unleashed. I am your host, Ryan Brown. I am Chief Marketing Officer at Xbyte Solutions. And today we're going to talk about a common question we get asked with probably about half of the migrations we do. That question is, should I separate my SQL server from my web server? And there are going to be some fringe cases where you should put them together for communication reasons. But for the vast majority of people, you really should separate them. And it comes down to these top 6 reasons. So I'm going to go over these today. Number one, tailored resource allocation. So you're configuring the box and hey, my SQL box is going to need this much memory. My web server is going to need this much memory in your CPU, and you can really tailor that to exactly the needs of those boxes. So you're getting the most bang for the buck from your VPS. Along those same lines, number two, we have SQL licensing. So you've tailored your resources, and I say SQL licensing, that could really be any license you have that's tied to resources. When you're having to pay for that, if you have one box or one VPS, I should say, that's doing everything, and now all of a sudden you have to have 8 cores on that machine as opposed to only 6, you're having to overpay for resources or overpay for licensing that's tied to your resources. Now, number three, independent scalability. So you've tailored these resources in the beginning. You got your costs down with any of your licensing costs, and suddenly your website's exploding, and you're needing more processing, and so you can now, with having them separate, you can go ahead and increase those resources just on the website itself. If you're doing any kind of load balancing, you can also focus your load balancing on the web server and not have to worry about multiple VPSs as you're doing that. So it really allows you to scale up. And let's say you're not necessarily scaling up with the VPS, and so we got number 4 coming up here. You're not at a point where you may need to have additional infrastructure or additional resources in that VPS, but you're at a peak time. You don't want those battling for dedicated resources. So you may have, let's say, your SQL server all of a sudden eat up all your memory or eat up all your CPU for processing, and there's nothing for the web server or vice versa in that. So by having them independent, broken up, they're not going to be fighting for resources, and you're going to be able to dedicate, okay, I know I'm going to reserve these resources for this. Number 5, we have minimized security risks. So whenever you have anything exposed to the public, there's going to be a potential access to it. So if you have your web server out there and it also houses your SQL data, if for any reason that machine were to be compromised, now all of a sudden they have access to both environments. So by kind of keeping them separate, you reduce some of those potential security risks around your environment. Now, the last but not least, it's the dreaded single point of failure. So in IT, you never want to have that single point of failure. And so if for whatever reason something were to happen in your environment and your web server were to go down, you could always, in a VPS environment, there's generally going to be failover anyway. But if you needed it, you could always fail over to the other machine. So you have that sort of a backup in place. You can also access that for any reason if you needed to, but you do avoid that dreaded single point of failure. So you have that in place. And also, as I said, also with those resources competing, if you do have them all in the same box, you're gonna have those resources competing for or competition for those resources. So as we talked about today, should you combine your SQL server and your web server in the same box? You shouldn't do it. Again, fringe cases you can, but because of your tailored resource allocation, your SQL licensing, independent scalability, reduced resource competition, minimize security risks, and that dreaded single point of failure, for those reasons, you really shouldn't put them both into one box. Now, of course, there's not a one-size-fit-all solution for everything, but I'm hoping just with this information, you can make informed decisions that really allow you to make the case for your particular business for what you should do. Of course, if you have any questions, we're here at Xbyte Solutions, Xbyte Hosting. we're ready to help you out. We can set up your VPS environment. So please let us know if we can help you out with anything. If you need more information about any of this, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much. And see you next week.